Olá a todos and welcome to another Julia video. In today's video we're going to look into the Documenter.jl package for the second time. If you want to set up your Documenter, if you're starting, if you want to put the documentation online, you should check the video that I have, the deep dive into Documenter. But today's video we're going to look even deeper and give you 5 tips to become an expert in using the Documenter.jl package. Hey, sorry to interrupt your lesson. I just wanted to quickly plug JuliaCon 2024. So if you are not aware, we have a conference in Julia every year for almost 10 years. I guess for 10 years now. And the next one will be in Eindhoven here in the Netherlands. So it will be very nice to see people so close to my new home. I will be there. I'll be giving 2 talks and I hope to see you as well. This is the first European JuliaCon in a while. We had the local JuliaCon also in Eindhoven, but the normal JuliaCon, the global one, well, I think the last one was in London, maybe 2018. So it's nice to have it again here in Europe, and I hope you can join, and especially because then we can show that there are many people in Europe interested in Julia, and they can do more conferences like that. So for today's video, we're going to be using the Playground with Git.jl package. It's the same package that I used last time. And I will be using a lot of the things that I've implemented in the Copier Template.jl package, which I also mentioned last time. So if you want to make use of those things, you can use the template directly. So to start, let's make a simple change on something that I mentioned last time. And it is something that will make your visualization of your documentation a bit simpler, a bit more streamlined. So right here we have a pretty URLs, and this trick that I showed you last time was not explained fully, but essentially what it does is I want to build the documentation locally in a way, and when I build the documentation online, I want to build it in a different way, right? So this is necessary if you're building the documentation like we did in a basic way, but it can lead to some errors in some situations. So what we are going to do is change this to true. So we always build the documentation with pretty URLs as if we were online, right? The problem is if you just build the documentation normally, so if you include make here, the URLs will be broken. So what you want to do instead is use LiveServer. And this is the first tip. Use LiveServer to serve your documentations locally. So first you want to open the Julia repo here, and you want to say using, so I actually want to activate the docs first, make sure that you're adding this in the docs, and I'm going to add LiveServer. Now that I have LiveServer installed, using LiveServer, and after I use LiveServer, I normally just activate back here, or you can keep docs activated, doesn't really matter. You want to use the function serve docs, but the important thing is you want to be in the main folder, right? So I am on the root of my project. So when I serve docs, it's going to look for the docs folder. Now that I serve the docs, you can see here localhost 8000. I can control click on this. And this is the documentation of Playground with Git. You can see the references, you can see the tutorials, and we did all of these things last time. So they are all being served locally. The links are correct. So that's the first tip that we have for you today. Use LiveServer so that whenever you make some change here, it will automatically update the docs. Like here, see it here, I don't remember what this section was. And you can check the documentation online here that the section, the thing that I just added was automatically built. So serve docs keeps reloading documentation automatically, which is pretty nice. So you don't have to worry about running include make every time. Let's go to the second tip of the day. The second tip that I have for you is use DocTests. So DocTests is a kind of, you have tests, you have documentation, you can mix the both of them. The idea is that you're going to add something to your documentation that should be checked for the output. So DocTest is essentially a code block, right? Like this is what you would say normally for your package. I don't know, you have something like f of x is x squared minus 2. and then you say f of 2, and you want to say, hey, the output of this is 2 square minus 2 is going to be 2. So this is relevant for your package, right? Well, the thing is, you're going to add something here. You're going to add the language JL DocTest. Save this, and then you can check the documentation. Right here is exactly what you were looking for. But the thing is, this was actually checked for the solution to be right, for the output of this on top to be 2. So how was it checked? You can look here in the documentation. There is one part of the documentation build, which is DocTest. This is still LiveServer, by the way. DocTest running DocTests. So in this part, your DocTest will be checked. So if we make a mistake here, for instance, 3, the output of this build will be an error. So the DocTest failure tells you where, and it tells you more information about what was expected. So this evaluated to 2, but you said it should be a 3, so there is some mistake. There are two things that are useful here. The first one is maybe you're writing your tutorial, you're writing your documentation for your package, and you make a typo or make a mistake. The DocTest will check that what you are trying to write is correct, right? So it means that it is a kind of a check that you're writing the correct tutorial, correct documentation. But there is also a second test, which is what makes this amazing, which is this serves as a test for your package. So if you change how your package behaves in some way, so you've changed internally, right? This will check and it will give you an error. So you will know that you have to update the documentation, okay? Okay, so here's a more concrete example. I have created a new function called almost square root of a. This function that you shouldn't worry about the implementation is computing the square root with some approximation. So just so you can see this, if I call almost square root of 2, you should get an output close to 1.4. So let's see what happens here. Well, one thing, almost square root is not defined because you have to use playground with Git. Save again, check the error. So yeah, the evaluated output is this, the expected output 1.4, because I did not put the exact value, but you can see that it's working, is giving me something close to 1.4, which is the square root. So what we can do here is check to show that the absolute value of square x square minus 2, so it should be close to 0. This is less than 1.1 to 10 to the minus 6, 1e minus 6, and this should be true. And you can see here now it works normally, it builds, and if I get the localhost documentation, this is the output. Okay, so my almost square root is less, gives me an error of 10, less than 10 to the minus 6. And this is actually part of the implementation. I have this check here, less than 10 to the minus 6. So if I go back here to my function almost square root and I change this, so for now my default error is only 10 to the minus 2. I save this, I go back to the documentation, I build it again. Hopefully we'll build it again. And well, it's probably still good enough because the method is so good that it just works. But if I say like 10 to the minus 12, then it fails. Okay, so yeah, the method is too good. Sorry. But now it fails. You can see that, well, I was expecting too much, and this method was not designed to be this good. It was designed to be a bit worse than it was. So this kind of test is useful for your documentation because you have a kind of behavior test inside the documentation itself. In some cases, you don't want to show the output, so I think we can put here output equals false. And by the way, I'm just gonna round x digits equals 2, and this will show 1.41. And this might be enough of a test. You can see here, if I hide the output, this doesn't show. If I do not hide the output, save again, you can see 1.41, right? So it shows it works. The other thing that you can do with JL DocTests is you can add a repo-like test. So you can say something like, Julia using playground with Git, and then X is round almost square root of 2 with 2 digits, and this will give you 1.41. Here you can see that it shows again, it just looks like normal Julia code, well formatted, because it's using a different kind of language parsing for this for this code blocks. But the thing is, if you change this 1 to 0, it will stop working and you can check the output. This is already amazing, but DocTests gets a little bit better. So 2 final things about DocTests that I like is, 1, you can add this DocTest to your doc string. So here in almost square root, I can create a doc string for it. So this is almost square root of a, comp the square root of a with some error, and then you can add examples JL DocTest using playground with Git, round almost square root of 2 digits equals to 1.40. Save again, so Control C. So sometimes I kill LiveServer and I run the LiveServer again. Okay, so sometimes by killing the LiveServer, you have to kill the LiveServer to update. And if you check the docs here, you can see that almost square root now exists. And the example is this nice doc test. So if I do change the behavior of almost square root to return x plus 1, when I build the documentation, maybe not here apparently, but when I build the documentation online, it will revisit this and tell me I have an error. So I will know from the documentation build that something went wrong. So whether you want to make the doc test a part of your test or not is something that you can choose for yourself. And whether you want to invest heavily on your doc strings, also having doc test, is also something that you might want to decide. Maybe you don't want to have duplicated tests. Normally not a good idea to have duplicated tests in many places. So if you have tests in your documentation and they are the same tests in your tests, I don't know if that makes sense. So one thing that you can do to separate them well is you have more unit tests, some faster tests, things that are just testing one function, smaller things in your tests. So when you run the tests locally, you're developing, it's faster. And then after the tests pass, you can check the doc tests, and then you can add something with a bit more result, like things that are doing something, not just calling a function, things that are showing more functionality of your package, more behavior driven than the unit test. That's totally up to you though. The next tip that I want to give to you is, first, like and subscribe. So follow my content, please. Click the subscribe button and the bell. But more focused on the Documenter side, I want to give you a tip that is actually many tips, which is know that there are more things in the documentation and check them out. Specifically, I want to just showcase the syntax. But if you look at the whole documentation, there's a bunch of extra information. Well, there's a whole section on DocTests, so it's a larger sub. You also have the LaTeX syntax, etc., and more information about hosting online that I covered in the previous video. But for now, what we're looking for is this extra syntax. We talked about a few of these. I want to talk about 2 other today. Well, 3 other. One is kind of short, but the first one is meta, the setup, and raw. So the setup is really useful when you have your tests and you want to do something a bit separate. So let's go to my tutorials here. So in this tutorial, I don't know if you remember this, I had using playground and then I hit this and then I did loan interest calculator. And then I had one example that remembered that X was created. So here my example 1, this is the first time that you have an example. I define X, and then in the second example, you have my example 1 again. X is just being used because X was defined here. So let's say that I say X equals 2, and I want to compute almost square root of 2. So if you run this, the expected thing to happen is an error because I don't have playground with Git, right? So let's show that. So you can see here in the tests that almost square root of 2 from my example, I had an error because almost square root was not defined. So the simple solution for this is for me to go to the tutorials and add using playground with Git, right? So that's the simple thing to do. I just do this and then I serve the docs again. It will run and I can show the tutorial has the working version. Well, this is a simple thing to do using playground with Git, but what if this is a bit more complicated and I have more steps to prepare my example? I could just hide them all, right? But one thing that you can do instead is you can add a setup or a command example, and then you move this to the setup. So I'm saving and looking at the documentation build, nothing failed, and looking again at the output. And you can see that I only have X equals 2 here, and almost square root of 2 just works. So I don't have to worry about anything. So this might be useful, for instance, if you have some data that you want to define. So data is X equals, I don't know, some 100 points, some other 100 points. And you want to do something with this data. So you define everything separately in your setup, and then you just create examples using that information. The second command, we're still in this third tip. So the second command is the meta block. So as I mentioned, at meta, and the main thing that meta does is to give you some information about this page that allows you to ignore some of the other things that you have to do. So here in index, for instance, I have the current module is at meta is playground with Git. So anything that involves documentation is aware now that I'm talking about this module, playground with Git. I only have one module, so it really doesn't matter. So the other cool thing that you can do here is you can set up some DocTest setup. So you can set up a setup. And here I'm copying this because I don't use this a lot. You can do this using playground with Git and remove from your DocTests, and all your DocTests will have a setup phase calling using playground with Git. Saving this, looking at the documentation, it just builds, and I can go back to the index page, and you can see that I don't have a using playground with Git anymore, but my DocTest still works, right? So this DocTest here is this DocTest. So that's this other more advanced command that you might see sometimes at meta, a basic usage, current module. And as I mentioned, there are more things that you can do with at meta. You can talk about filters, DocTest filters, and you can talk about a link to where you can edit this documentation page. So if you haven't seen this, this is Documenter.jl. So you can see that there is a link here. So edit source on GitHub. These will point to the documentation file that has this page. So you can click on that. If for some reason you're using some kind of different setup, you can link to the correct place. For instance, if you have a documentation built somewhere and then you have a separate web page where you serve your documentation, so you want people to edit a different GitHub repository because you're serving your pages on a completely separate web page. We're not doing anything like that right now, so I can show you an example easily. And last but not least, we have the @raw format. So the @raw format is where things don't get processed by the documenter. You just tell this to be explicitly used. You have either HTML or LaTeX, which we won't care about. We're only looking at HTML. And one use for this is when you actually want to do some kind of specific HTML magic that you're copy pasting from somewhere else. So here's an example from Copier Template. So Copier Template here, some other page. On Copier Template index, I have a raw HTML for the contributors list. So this is something for the all contributors website/tools. And this is essentially, this is a bunch of comments from HTML, but this is essentially a table from HTML that I don't want to transform this into Markdown. This is generated automatically by a bot. So I want this to just be processed as HTML and don't let Documenter touch anything here, right? So I just enclose all of this in a triple quotes at raw HTML. Here's the end. And this gets processed into this nice page here. This right here, contributors, and then you have this page with the people that contributed to this package so far. The idea being that you just want the HTML that you copy pasting from somewhere else to not be touched by Documenter, so you can use the add raw. This is a more advanced feature, which is wide. Tip number 4, and this one has a lot of opinion on it, so you know it's one of my favorite. I do it like this because of the template that we are building. So what happens in your documentation build? There is a section here that tells you, hey, these are the pages. This is the order that the pages will appear. The home is first, reference, then tutorials. Let's look at the build. So if you look here, you have playground, the git, home, and reference, and tutorials. So if I change the order of these two things, you can see that when it builds, it changes tutorials and reference, right? So the order of these pages is important, and also you have some kind of naming going on. So what happens if you, for instance, want to build a template, and this is going to read some kind of predefined files, but also the user wants to have some files? Well, the thing is, you want the make.jl to work, so you want to automatically read what's in this folder. So one solution is just read the whole source file and then create a list of pages. The thing is that will lead to the order being the same order of the file names or some other order that you don't want. So one thing that you can do instead is to give this a properly ordered file name. So index.md is the index is kind of special, so let's leave it like that. The reference, you can give it a name like 90 reference, and tutorials is kind of important, so maybe that's going to be your second page, so 20 tutorials. So the order now is tutorials and reference. So what I will do is I will create some code to automatically create the pages for me. And this is done in the template. As I mentioned before, there are some things in the template. So I'm just copy pasting this. The first thing that we are copy pasting is we have a constant that we define ourselves, me, you, the user, called page rename, which gives you a list of names of files to better titles. That is a function called nice name that will give the file a nice name for Documenter. So essentially we are replacing the starting number by nothing, just remove that. And if you have a renaming, you just rename now, return that. Otherwise, you're going to split this developer.md file or reference.md or tutorials.md. Just split, removing the extension, replace the dashes that might exist in the file by empty spaces, and give it a title case. So what does that mean? So we can create something like full guide.md, and in the full guide you have a full guide, and you can have something like introduction.md, and here just intro. And in the pages, instead of what we have right now, we're going to simply replace by this. So these pages now start with the index, always start with the home, and then you just create a nice name from the file, pointing to the file for every file in this directory, in the source directory, except for index.md and only the .md files. You want to ignore extra things that you might have inside your source. And this will give you have the home, you have introduction, tutorials, full guide, and reference. All of these things are based solely on the name of the files, and the ordering is based on the number used in the name of the files. So this is an automatic thing that you kind of copy once and just use forever, right? But this is essentially allowing me to rename my source files and not worry about changing the make.jl. If I forget, for instance, I create a new tutorial and I forget to add it, well, the make.jl will automatically take that and make it better. Finally, we get to the last tip for you to become a Documenter expert. So make.jl, there is one extra thing here, which is the push preview. And in the push preview, we're gonna change this to true. So in the last video, I said, don't worry about this. Things have to be done for this to work. And today we're gonna talk about it. So the first thing is I'm going to create a new branch called deeper dive, and in the deeper, so what is the status of things? I have created some new docs files, so I'm adding these things. Git status. I'm going to create a commit for this, so deeper dive result, and I'm going to push -u origin, so just remote v. The origin is myself, Abel Siqueira Playground with Git. Push that u origin deeper dive. When I push that, I can click here to create a new pull request, and I will ignore all of these things and just create a pull request. And after a short break to wait for the things to pass, the docs documentation passed, right? So this is running DocTests, by the way, so this is a bit more interesting than before, but that's not why we are here. We are here because of Documenter deploy down here. You can check these details. And what? This is a preview, so if you can't read here, is my website /previews PR44, which is this pull request. So I am previewing exactly what I just pushed online. This is not merged, this is, as the name implies, a preview of the pull request. So you can see here the full guide and references and tutorials that I just created with the new things like almost square root. So this is a bit more advanced, not because it's harder or anything, right? Because essentially you just change push preview equals true, and then you just click down here. But the thing is, this only works if it has access to the thing. So here I have abelsiqueira.com/playground with Git. So abelsiqueira.com is just pointing to my abelsiqueira.github.io, which is the full path to the documentation. So if you come down here and you go to the docs dev, you will see it's abelsiqueira.com/playground with Git/dev. But here on that, where I have the versions dev, I also have the versions preview PR. So if I can't push to Abel Siqueira, Playground with Git, this doesn't work. So as an example of what happens when you have push preview equals true, but you don't have writing rights, okay? So this is tulipa.io.jl, which is a package that I'm working on. So you can see here in one of mine, details, yeah. So here, this is one of mine. You can see Documenter deploy build successfully here. And if you take some other one, let me see one that actually changes the documentation. So here I found one example. This is by Lauren, and she, I guess, doesn't have permissions to push directly. So the documentation here has built, but the preview has not. So again, why are previews more advanced? So the first reason, not everybody will have permission to push a preview. So if you're working on an open source project that most of the contributions are from outside forks, you will not have previews of your pull request, right? So you will have to work in that way where everybody has right access to the repo, which is not really common for large open source projects. There are other ways to build previews, but those are much more complicated in that situation. So maybe for the deepest dive, we can do something like that, but it will not be straightforward at all to do something easy. And the second reason that this is a bit more advanced, and this is already in the documentation of Documenter, is that if you're building previews and your package is large, you're going to have a lot of things in your GH pages, which is bad. One, because this will be larger, so when you're cloning, this will take a bit longer, but also because your page will be larger as well. So you're just adding a bunch of garbage, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to push those things. Since we are doing everything on GitHub, we don't care so much about those things until they become critical. But for instance, if you're building and then you push whatever's in GH pages to some other web page, then you're going to have to pay for disk usage in that other place, and then you worry about how much you're paying. And so that's when you actually start to feel sorry for the things, when you actually have to pay for it. Okay, thanks a lot for watching this deeper dive into Documenter. I hope you enjoyed it. I selected these 5 things to say because 5 is a nice number for YouTube things. But of course, you can always find more things to say. So if you have any tips for other people using Documenter, please leave them in the comments below. And if you're looking for more information about any of the things that I mentioned today, please let me know. As always, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you soon. See you next time.